over the next several hours, days, as the summit continues. Christine?
Right, a lot happening there. You're covering it all for us. Thanks, Kevin. Nice to see you. All right, tonight, former President Donald Trump set to make his highly anticipated special announcement, which a top aide has already revealed will be another run for the White House. Meanwhile, former Vice President Mike Pence tells ABC News the country will have better choices than Trump in the future.
Will you run for president in 2024?
Well, we're giving it consideration in our House. Prayerful consideration.
Do you believe you can beat Donald Trump?
Well, that would be for others to say. And it'd be for us to decide whether or not we'd want to test that.
Be sure to tune in when former Vice President Mike Pence joins Jake Tapper for a live CNN town hall. That is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Right, the January 6th committee says former President Trump has failed to comply with its subpoena for testimony and documents. The panel has previously held witnesses in contempt of Congress for defying those subpoenas. Committee chairs are now looking at the next steps. Trump sued the committee, challenging its legitimacy, which multiple courts have already upheld. To Virginia now, the suspect in the shooting at the University of Virginia faces 3 counts of second-degree murder. The gunman's father is now revealing what his son told him before the shooting.
He was real paranoid when I talked to him about something. He wouldn't tell me everything. He said some people was picking on him or whatever. He didn't know how to handle it. I just told him, just go to school. Don't pay him no mind. Do what you got to do. Come on, you only had 1 more year. What happened? Why did it have to get this far? He could have called me.
CNN's Miguel Marquez has more from the UVA campus in Charlottesville, Virginia.
10:15 Sunday night, police say gunshots fired on the University of Virginia campus.
We heard some of the shots, and then almost immediately rumors were flying.
One witness tells CNN they heard shots inside a bus as it pulled up to campus. The doors flying open, people tumbling out.
The shootings occurred on a bus full of students returning from a field trip. 3 of the victims did not survive.
10:40 p.m., UVA police tweet a shelter-in-place order. For the next 12 hours, students trapped wherever they were, in libraries and dorms.
We were basically turning the lights off, hunkered down, trying to just stay put. I was feeling pretty anxious.
The dead, all football players, all with their lives ahead. Devin Chandler, Deshaun Perry, and Lavelle Davis Jr. In a statement, their coach said, "These were incredible young men with huge aspirations and extremely bright futures. Our hearts ache for their families, their classmates, and their friends. These precious young men were called away too soon." Around 11:15 Monday morning.
Pardon me.
In the middle of a press conference, the news everyone was waiting for.
We just received information the suspect is in custody.
Henrico police say they picked up that suspect, a University of Virginia student and former football player, about 75 miles away from the Charlottesville campus. UVA's president says he wounded 2 additional students, one in good condition, the other critically injured.
My heart is broken for the victims and their families and for all those who knew and loved them.
This is not the first time the suspect has come to the UVA Police Department's attention. They say he performed a threat assessment in the investigation revealing a 20
Hello on this wet and gloomy Tuesday as we say good morning and welcome to the program Good Morning St. Lucia Vibes at Sunrise. Your host is Shannon Lebourne. Tuesday, November 15th. Lots of rain this morning as the residue of a trough system lingers in our atmosphere. We are monitoring the weather and we will have all the updates this morning, but we are sending you some warmth and good vibes on this rainy Tuesday across the northern portion of the island. Let us know what the conditions are like in your communities. Also coming up on this edition of the program, we journey to Egypt and back We go over to the land of the pyramids for an exclusive interview with the Minister for Sustainable Development, Honorable Sean Edward, on the COP27 exercise now underway. Plus, our domestic reality of abuse and trauma. Here's your invitation to remain with us from now until 9 a.m., during which time we'll also join Dr. Jimmy Fletcher for 2 Cent Tuesdays. The time is now 6:06. The latest news headlines. Your first news of the day with Shannon Lebourne is up next.
The morning news, first news of the day, is sponsored by Quartz.
Top story this hour: heavy rains and thunderstorms put many St. Lucians on edge last evening in fear of flooding and further devastation on the heels of the November 6th trough. The rain started about 8 p.m. and persisted long into the night. Moisture and instability trailing a trough system continue to cause some cloudy periods with showers and isolated thunderstorms over the eastern Caribbean region. As a result, there were confirmed reports of flooding in the capital Castries, including along Jeremy Street, in Cul-de-sac, and other northern communities. The tourism and hospitality sector was not spared. Flood waters invaded sections of the Sanders Regency Hotel La Toc. The Edgewater suites were themselves underwater and appeared to have been impacted most. And while the damage from initial assessments falls short of the events of the recent trough system, last night's inclement weather again highlighted the fragility of domestic and national infrastructure. Surface soils remain saturated, rivers and drains are heavily silted, making conditions conducive for flooding and landslides. Thankfully, there was no loss of life. After intense cleanup activity, the students of the Dame Paulette Louise Primary School returned to the classroom on Monday after heavy rains and 3 feet of flood waters dumped a thick layer of mud on the ground floor of the institution, destroying instructional material, books, and school equipment. Despite the amazing cleanup in time for the reopening on Monday, kindergarten and grade 1 students will remain at home temporarily, engaging in remote learning while further arrangements are being made to accommodate the in-class instructions on the ground floor of the school. Education officials, along with the school principal, Ms. Evelyn Leos, were on hand to welcome back staff and students of the school into physical classrooms. Quite a happy bunch. The post-flood recovery is making slow progress as the government and other agencies move to provide aid to hundreds of affected victims. While the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, continues its assessment of the damages the island sustained due to the last weekend's rainstorm, Grosley residents are still reeling from the effects of the devastation. MP for the area, Kenson Kazimi, reveals that although amelioration efforts are underway, there is still much work which needs to be done to effectively recover from the losses suffered. However, through government intervention and the efforts of corporate St. Lucia, the Member of Parliament believes his constituency will overcome this challenge. Kareem Nelson reports.
While the damages of last weekend's severe weather system is still being quantified by NEMO, the organization simultaneously commenced post-disaster relief to communities and households affected by the devastating floods. NEMO's acting director, Maria Maydad, led a team of volunteers through the Corinth estate on Friday to deliver supplies to affected households, inclusive of food, water, and mattresses. Last week, the government of St. Lucia also activated $200,000 worth of food and sanitizing vouchers to be distributed to families grappling with the losses incurred. Although these remedial initiatives continue throughout Grosley, Parliamentary Representative Kenson Kazime highlights that constituents are still suffering. He notes that the damages are insurmountable and every effort needs to be deployed to assist the distraught families.
We have parents that are crying. Up until this morning, up until last night, for me as an MP, it's been difficult for me to sleep, considering the fact that, parents are calling saying they've not received a mattress or pillow, and it's 8 days since this thing has happened, and they have not been able to have a proper sleep. Persons who would have received devices from the ministry in terms of this government's effort to provide laptops and the technology to students who are developing, these items are gone. And so things like school uniform, we have the reopening of the Impullet, but we still have a number of students, their shoes, their shirts, their bags, everything wiped off. And so the efforts continue to replace that. And so we calling on corporate St. Lucia to join this fight.
It is interesting to note that amidst the torrential rains and ravaging floods, Casimir was actively engaged assisting residents with rescue ventures. What started off as a usual Sunday constituency visit to the elderly in the area for the parliamentary representative quickly turned into a call for action.
I was in the process of actually going underground when the rain started. And as fate would have it, I started filming some of the challenges that I face as a parliamentary rep in some of the communities when it rains, not knowing that this was going to be the event of the century for the constituency of Groseley. I was thrown into action immediately, and as a Jacques Groseley, you were raised to be your brothers and your sisters' keeper. So those individuals that had problems getting their animals out, those individuals that had problems, getting some of their documents out, we were just thrown into that immediately. I was in the community of Inglewood, I was in the community of Asu Canal and Windward Island Gas Road and Flamboyant Drive, and I saw firsthand the devastation of what the rains did.
The Groseley Constituency Council is exploring the idea of hosting a national telethon on the last Friday of November to coincide with Groseley Friday night to garner donations and contributions to assist needy community members. Reporting for the Hot 7 TV News, I am Kareem Nelson.
Thanks, Kareem. Now, still in Groseley, a shooting in the northern town on Sunday night could have easily resulted in another homicide. A man believed to be in his mid to late 20s walked into the Groseley fire station Sunday seeking help after being shot. The victim complained of pain in his back. Upon examination of the area, emergency personnel found that the patient sustained penetrating wounds to the region. Emergency medical care was provided and the patient was transported to the OKEU hospital in a stable condition. In more crime news, the discovery of a body in Roseau on Friday of last week, November the 11th, is raising more questions than answers. Police have confirmed that the body of MacGyver Wayne Popo, a resident of Ancillary, was discovered a few yards away from his vehicle in Roseau with several stab wounds about his body. He was 45. The details surrounding this homicide number 60, are scarce, and we approached the family who opted to withhold comment.
On Friday, November 11th, officers attached to the Ancillary police station received information on an abandoned vehicle in an off-road opposite a coconut field in Roseau. The parked vehicle, owned by 35-year-old Ancillary resident MacGyver Popo, prompted officers to investigate the scene further, leading to the discovery of his body a short distance away from his vehicle. While assessing the scene, multiple stab wounds were visible about his body, including wounds to the neck and back. It is alleged that the Ancillary resident received threats moments leading up to his death, which entailed gunshots allegedly being fired at him in front of his home. Our news team approached the family to gain a comprehensive understanding of the situation and any insight into the circumstances immediately leading up to his demise. However, they refused to comment on the incident. His death brings the island's toll to 60 for the year and was a stone's throw away from the site where the island's first homicide for 2022 was recorded. Reporting for the Hot 7 TV News, I am Jasmine Duncan.
Thanks, Jasmine. The perennial issue of subpar remuneration within the St. Lucia hotel industry has risen once again, with many calling for the issue to be addressed at the soonest. While this is no new issue, the rise in the cost of living on the island is said to be exacerbating the problem. Adding his voice to the growing debate, Tourism Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire affirms that considering the accommodation sector generates the most economic activity on the island, workers should not be subject to dissatisfactory pay. However, he notes remedying the issue is a lot more complex.
Low pay in the hospitality sector has returned to the forefront of social conversations as citizens combat growing economic struggles. The controversial issue was recently thrust into the spotlight by RISE chairman Dr. Venus Cherry when he lamented that in some instances, hospitality sector workers are subject to as low as $4 per hour in remuneration for their services. This prompted many individuals across social media to air their gripes with the dissatisfactory pay offered at many of the island's accommodation establishments. Despite these present disclosures, the issue of the lack of profit share by hotels to their workforce is quite notorious not only in St. Lucia but around the world. Reacting to the unfortunate revelations, Tourism Minister Dr. Ernest Hilaire believes that it is unacceptable for an economic juggernaut to unfairly pay its workers.
The largest income earner in the country that employs the most people cannot have the worst employment conditions. It cannot. There has to be better wages and there has to be better working conditions. And the Labour Party treats that with utmost importance. Now, how do you do it is a different issue.
Dr. Hilaire highlighted that government intervention to alleviate the problem is, however, far more complex. While noting that the state is taking steps to establish minimum wages in St. Lucia, he notes that moral appeals could be made to these hotel proprietors to augment their compensation policies to allow for wage increases.
The government has also established a minimum wage council that will look at the minimum wages that has to be paid, and that work is not yet completed, but it will be completed shortly. But I can't give you the exact date because it doesn't fall under my ministry. But we also have to use moral suasion. I mean, I have literally had to pick up the phone and call certain persons and say to them, you know, I'm getting reports of X, Y, and Z, and that's just not right. That's just not acceptable. You don't want to necessarily go about your first instance reporting and taking action. You want to use some moral suasion and say, look, such is really not good. You know, and let's try and address it and let's try and deal with it. It should not be necessarily the established way of doing things, but we have to be able to do that. So you're absolutely right. It's a sector that earns a tremendous amount of money. A large number of St. Lucians work in that industry, and we have to make sure that the working conditions and the compensation is fair and just.
Reporting for the Hot 7 TV News, I am Kareem Nelson.
Universal health care is once again at the top of government's agenda. The Universal Health Coverage Project is set to launch a fact-finding survey. Director of Universal Health Coverage, Dr. Lisa Eugene, says the survey will serve as a digital data collection tool, imperative to the imminent launch of the Universal Healthcare Coverage Project.
There are 5 key components to the nationwide survey, namely demographic information, public knowledge on universal health coverage, services to expect under universal health coverage, willingness to register, and public preference on information dissemination. Nationals will be invited to participate in the survey via a user-friendly digital platform. The aim of universal health coverage is to make healthcare more accessible to all segments of the population and facilitate a more inclusive healthcare system.
According to Dr. Eugene, the project, the Universal Health Coverage Project, seeks to make healthcare services more accessible to all segments of the population and facilitate a more inclusive healthcare system.
This includes the full range of essential health services, from health promotion to prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Honorable Moses Jabati says the government has taken concrete actions to cause St. Lucia to have a sustainable universal healthcare system. He adds that people need to understand how to use and access good quality healthcare opportunities which are being created at all levels of the system. The Union Roundabout, which was severely compromised by the recent adverse weather conditions, is significantly hindering traffic flow in the area. Infrastructure Minister Stephenson King has divulged that the road infrastructure suffered several structural failures after its construction resulted in degradation of the surface. The Ministry of Infrastructure hopes to rectify the issue in the coming weeks. Kareem Nelson takes a...
The devastating flood Sunday's adverse weather system did not spare the newly constructed Union Roundabout in its path of destruction. The roundabout's infrastructural integrity has been compromised by the inundation of moisture as a result of the torrential rainfall. Consequently, the surface of the roadway has degraded. This is posing a challenge to motorists and commuters, as it appears that the road device in its current state is significantly slowing traffic flow. Infrastructure Minister Stephenson King informs that in the coming weeks, reinforcement works should be completed to return the roundabout to its normal state.
The issue with the Allen Busque Highway roundabout is very simple. It's that there seemed to have been some structural failure after the construction of the roundabout. The thing about it is there were two contractors engaged on that project, one which did the base and the other one which did the pavement. The contractor who did the base went in and redid the base, so he had to remove the surface to get the base done, and the contractor to do the pavement is mobilizing to come in to get the pavement done. That has caused some delay, in that once we reach that area, we've got to slow down, and it's not a smooth transition around the roundabout. And we're hoping that within the coming week or so, we will be in a position to complete that project once and for all.
While the roundabout was constructed to ameliorate traffic congestion in the area, motorists have lamented that quite the opposite has obtained, as that area is still inundated with traffic. The senior minister reveals that accommodations are being explored to lessen on the traffic flow.
The roundabout was intended, and that roundabout was intended to have taken place a long time ago. Okay? But it was intended to regulate and to be able to, if I should say, make that junction a lot more efficient. But what we are seeing now is that because the Granavia Road has been improved, so there's more traffic along the Granavia Road, and likewise Babonneau. But we're hoping that we will have some alterations, particularly to facilitate the Impul Literacy School.
Reporting for the Hot 7 TV News, I am Kareem Nelson.
In more news now, information and communications technology ICT consultant Jerry George has made history as the first St. Lucian and only third Caribbean national to be elected to the Advisory Council of the American Registry for Internet Numbers, ARIN. The body manages, distributes, and registers Internet number resources as Internet Protocol, such as Internet Protocol addresses, and autonomous system numbers in Northern America, the Caribbean, and North Atlantic regions. ARIN is one of 5 global regional internet registries with such responsibility. Elected by the ARIN membership, the Advisory Council advises the Board of Trustees on Internet Number Resources Policy and related matters of a recommended draft policy to the board for ratification. In a moment of reflection, Mr. Jerry George made a statement while also congratulating the successful candidate. He said, quote, "Being successfully elected definitely leaves me elated, apprehensive, and humbled. I face the task with a bit of apprehension due to the stellar work which has been done by the others in the past, and with the full knowledge that this is a high bar to which I must measure up. As only the third person from the Caribbean region to fill this post, I'm also aware this achievement carries some responsibility. I look forward to working with other members of the Advisory Council, the other units within the ARIN, and the member community to serve to the best of my ability." Unquote. Mr. George holds a Master's of Science in Management Information Systems and currently serves as the Technical Commissioner of the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC, a position which has been renewed for 5 consecutive times, testament to his effectiveness in that role. He is also the president of the ICT Association of St. Lucia. His 3-year term with ARIN's Advisory Council begins on January 1st. Now, finally from us this hour, November has been designated globally as Diabetes Awareness Month. The theme, Access to Diabetes Care, has been adopted by the International Diabetes Federation for the period 2021 to 2023, with this year's slogan being Education to Protect Tomorrow.
Diabetes continues to be a major cause for concern to the healthcare sector in St. Lucia. Together with hypertension, it is one of the leading causes of death throughout the island. Categorized as a non-communicable disease, this condition requires afflicted persons to make lifestyle changes regarding diet and exercise in order to effectively manage the disease, hence the reason diabetes is often called a lifestyle chronic condition by healthcare practitioners. Speaking on the Health Squad, newly installed president of the St. Lucia Diabetic and Hypertensive Association, Dr. Kedmar Doe, prescribes an active lifestyle coupled with a healthy balanced diet to reduce the propensity for developing diabetes.
The International Diabetes Federation from 2021 to 2023 developed the theme Access to Diabetes Care, and this year's slogan, Education to Protect Tomorrow, basically tells us that we need to educate ourselves. And just touching on what my board members suggested, that we can eradicate diabetes and hypertension, education is the beginning. And if everybody were to just get it clear that diabetes, hypertension, for the most part, is a lifestyle chronic condition, that's where we can actually move in the right direction to eventually getting some headway in possibly eradicating it. All right, so lifestyle, diet, exercise is very important. And if we were to actually adopt that as a people, it would actually help us achieve that possible feat.
To coincide with the global observance of Diabetes Awareness Month, the St. Lucia Diabetic and Hypertensive Association held a free blood glucose testing for members of the public. In order to advance the work and advocacy of the organization, a new executive was recently elected at the association's biennial general meeting on October 25, 2022. 9 new members will serve a 2-year term from 2022 to 2024. Dr. Doe explains what the mandate is.
The St. Lucia Diabetes and Hypertension Association on October 25th had its biennial general meeting. At this meeting, we usually have our elections to put together the new board, and on that night, we elected our 9 new board members, and I, Dr. Doe, was elected by the membership to serve as the new president for the next 2 years. So our new board will be in place, so our tenure starts 2022 and it should end in 2024. We've had meetings since, and the board is very enthusiastic about the association and the way forward. I could tell you for sure that we're all on the same page and that we'd like to see an association that is for the people, for the persons with diabetes, hypertension, which is our mandate as an NGO.
The St. Lucia Diabetes and Hypertensive Association was first conceptualized on August 9, 1983, and opened its doors in April of 1987. Initially, the organization was a support group for persons suffering from diabetes and hypertension, but has since grown to include the provision of various services to the public, including blood glucose testing, blood pressure testing, and sale of diabetes testing equipment. Reporting for Hot 7 TV News, I am Jasmine Duncan.
Before we end, the recap of our top story. Heavy rains and thunderstorms put many St. Lucians on edge last evening in fear of flooding and further devastation on the heels of the November 6th trough. The rain started about 8 p.m. and persisted long into the night. Moisture and instability trailing a trough system continued to cause some cloudy periods with showers and isolated thunderstorms over the eastern Caribbean. As a result, there were confirmed reports of flooding in the capital Castries, including along Jeremy Street, Cul-de-sac, and other northern communities. The tourism and hospitality sector was not spared. Flood waters invaded the Sandals Regency Hotel, atop the Edgewater Suites with themselves underwater and appeared to have been impacted most. And while the damage from initial assessments falls short of the events of the recent trough system last night, inclement weather again highlighted the fragility of domestic and national infrastructure. Surface soils remain saturated, rivers and drains are heavily silted, making conditions conducive for flooding and landslides. Thankfully, there was no loss of life. Well, that's the news. The first news of the day with Shannon Lebourne.
The morning news, first news of the day, is sponsored by Quartz.
Good morning, 6:35 now the time, 25 minutes before 7. Sports is next. In sports this hour, let's shoot off with results from school sports. Micoud Secondary and Soufrière Comprehensive will face off in the finals of the Inter-Schools Netball Championships. The semi-finals were held on Monday at the Micoud courts. Micoud Secondary had a convincing win over Babonneau Secondary 42-20. For Micoud Secondary, the goal shoot, Shamaz Margaret scored 35 from 50 attempts. Goal attacker Casey Markey scored 7 from 8 attempts. For Babonneau Secondary, Danica Bernard scored 3 from 10 attempts, and Venencia Edwards scored 17 from 27 attempts. In the other semi-finals, Soufrière Comprehensive fought hard to secure a big win against the St. Lucia Sports Academy. The final scored 25-22 for Soufrière Comprehensive. Goal shooter Ashla Clemens scored 10 from 17 attempts, and goal attacker Danisha Valtor scored 15 from 22 attempts. For the Sports Academy, Claudiana DeRose scored 21 from 28 attempts, and Makaya Smith scored 1 from 2 attempts. Micoud Secondary and Soufrière Comprehensive will face off in the finals of the Inter-Schools Netball Championships. Who will it be? On Monday, the St. Lucia Football Association SLFA Inc. launched a program of activities for Women's Football Month being celebrated this November. President of the SLFA, Lyndon Cooper, speaking during the launch, explained the aim is to celebrate women's participation in the sport while stimulating further interest amongst young girls and women.
For us, this activity is part of the quest to reposition, redevelop, grow, enhance, attract the women's program within the structure of the SLFA. For us, what we have seen in the last few years is a slow pace of growth when it comes to numbers of women within the sport of football. We then, before COVID, made a decision to do our utmost to attract more women into the sport.
In other sports news now, the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, led by Director of Sports, Mr. Jim Xavier, hosted an initial meeting with the St. Lucia Cricket Association. That meeting took place on Monday, November 14th. This engagement was in an effort to jumpstart plans for hosting of the Windward Islands Under-15 Cricket Championships tournament set for December 10th to the 17th at venues to be announced. 30 young cricketers have been called up for national training ahead of that competition. Finally, from us in the sports, Arundel Hill stand tall as champions of the 2022 Philip J. Pierre District Cup in Castries East. They defeated Marshall Boulevard in the finals on Sunday. Arundel Hill took the lead early via a goal from the penalty spot. Boulevard, they fought back hard to get the equalizer, but they let their guards down to allow a quick second goal. Christopher Clark is the president of the Marshall Football League.
We have just concluded the Honorable Philip J. Pierre Football Tournament 2022. It was a phenomenal tournament, the first in the community since the restrictions have been lifted from COVID. It was very well accepted and received by the community, and we had a phenomenal tournament. It was hosted and completed today at the Marshall grounds. We, coming out of the tournament, we saw Arundel Hill coming out victorious after a thriller of a final against
the Marshall Boulevard, where they won the final score of 2-1. We had players such as Andres Remy and Lincoln Phillip showing their quality and was certainly able to put their team on top and carry through and bring a victory and a trophy home to their endeavoring team.
Well, the parliamentary rep and Prime Minister Philippe J. Pierre was also on hand to witness the finals and to give remarks in a post-match interview. He said he hopes to continue competitive rivalry through sports in the community.
Congratulations to the Enderby side, being on the better side in a very exciting match. You see the jubilation and the happiness this afternoon. We hope we can continue to show people that there is talent in Castries. Congratulations, the best team won. Moving forward for the other tournament next year.
The winners of that district cup took home a cash prize of $4,000, medals, trophies, and the bragging rights. Congratulations. Well, with those results on Marshall football, we've come to the end of the morning sports. For Tuesday, November the 15th, the winds will be blowing from the east near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy at times with scattered showers which may be heavy in some areas and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. A gradual improvement is expected by later today. Residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to remain vigilant. Moisture and instability in the atmosphere over our region will continue to cause some cloudy periods with showers and isolated thunderstorms over the region during the next 24 hours, which is the forecast period. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 5 days. Just hold a while. Let's recap some very important information there. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy at times with some scattered showers which may be heavy in some areas, and there is a chance of isolated thunderstorms. A gradual improvement is expected later today. That's the good news. Residents in areas prone to flooding and landslides, you are advised to remain vigilant, and moisture and instability in the atmosphere over our region will continue to cause some cloudy periods with showers and isolated thunderstorms over the southern eastern Caribbean during the forecast period. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected, however, over the tropical Atlantic during the next 5 days. The latest forecast from the Huron Meteorological Office in VA4 St. Lucia has many wake up to wet conditions here on the island today. Tuesday, there is more on the weather online, www.slumet.gov.lc or the 24/7 weather hotline 454-3452. We're continuing to monitor the weather. Improvements expected later on today. We'll have updates once they become available, but let us know what the conditions are like in your community. Still to come on this edition of the program, we make the trip over to Egypt, the land of pyramids, for an exclusive interview with the Honorable Sean Edwards, who is currently attending the COP27 conference over there. You want to stay with us for a journey over to Egypt this morning, and we'll also link up with former government minister Dr. Jimmy Fletcher for this week's edition of 2 Cent Tuesdays, plus our domestic issue of trauma will be discussed right here on the platform. Happy holidays. It's our Christmas programming here on Good Morning St. Lucia. Thank you for waking up and making us your choice.
Always wanted a motorcycle, but they've been too expensive. I pass in on my way to work, and then boom, I see courts have motorcycles outside. I'm excited. I get up one day, I go down, I spoke to this guy. I think his name was Sheena, this short, chubby little guy, you know. I purchased 2 bikes so far. It was the 150 SL and the 250 Dragon. This blue, beautiful AKT TT Dragon, this is my baby. I call her Becky. She gives me the best ride ever. My name is Storyboy Nick and I live to ride my AKT.
Savor the flavor of 14 of Rodney Bay's best restaurants. The Bay Gardens Resorts presents Taste the Bay Food Festival, a culinary extravaganza you don't want to miss. November 27th from 11 a.m. at the Bay Gardens Beach Resort and Spa. Taste the Bay Food Festival, powered by St. Lucia. For more information, contact the Bay Gardens Resorts at 457-8535 or check out our Instagram page for more updates. Taste the Bay Food Festival, November 27th, 2022, Bay Gardens Beach Resort and Spa.
Get your clothes sparkling clean with whiter whites and brighter colors. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. Ultra concentrated formula gives more washes with brightening factors added to keep your clothes looking new. And with the added organic fabric softener, your clothes will be soft and fluffy. Joby antibacterial washing powder is also effective in stain removal for cleaner, brighter, softer clothes with the sweet scent of early spring morning. Use Joby antibacterial washing powder. My family, my love, my Joby. Available at supermarkets island-wide. For orders, call 455-3076.
Mourning a loss? Hot 7 TV wants to help you celebrate the beautiful memory of your loved one with In Loving Memory, Celebrating Lives. Whether it's a birthday, a wedding anniversary, or some memorable occasion, or the anniversary of the passing of the dearly departed, Hot 7 TV will create a moving video tribute of that special person, showing how much he or she meant to you. Treasured memories, unforgettable moments. Share them with the world and repeat the airing as often as you'd like. Help keep your loved one's memory alive forever in the minds and hearts of all who care. In Loving Memory, Celebrating Lives. Contact us at telephone number 452-6040 or email us at inlovingmemory@caribbeanhottv.com.
Good morning, St. Lucia. Vibes at sunrise. An informative, enlightening, stimulating package. It can be taken as your morning cup of tea. Fortuna Anthony endorsing Vibes in the Morning.
Good morning and thank you for staying with us again. If you're just joining us, we welcome you to the platform. Hi to a few of our viewers who are tuned in online. We say good morning to Selector Run It Red, who's been logged in from early. Good morning to Tasha Gustav as well. Hi to Annette Collymore, who's watching all the way in London, England. Thank you for connecting and for joining us on this platform. Have a blessed one. Annette Collymore over in the UK. And we say good morning as well to Jade JD. I hope I got it right. Catherine, Stanislas Popo, and the entire gang who's always tuned in online. My very first guest special guest is already on standby, and she is on the Flow WhatsApp platform. Good morning, and thank you so very much for waking up. Thank you for agreeing to come on. I like to play it safe always, so I just say good morning and welcome to Miss Hackshaw.
Good morning.
She's on with us, correct? She is. And if we could put her on screen, she'll guide us through the pronunciation of her first name, which guides the brand behind her NGO as well. She is a counselor and trauma therapist. How do you pronounce the first name?
My first name is Suyen.
Suyen.
Yes.
Suyen Hackshaw. You notice now why I like to play it safe, and I just say, boy, let me just go with Miss Hackshaw. Welcome. Thanks for agreeing to join us.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Let's start off with a brief introduction. Tell us about the NGO.
ProSafe is an NGO that has been around for quite a few years. It is, the acronym stands for Positive Reactions Over Secrets and Fears, and it was developed primarily to address issues around sexual violence and the education that comes with that.
Excellent. And what's the feedback been like? You've obviously been doing this for a while now. What sort of impact would you say that the NGO has been having in addressing these issues?
I think we have been quiet for some time. I think the greatest impact we have had is in validating many survivors. So whether or not people have been able to ready to